Hello, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery. I'm Sarah Altair, and this is where we talk about making a good mystery great. Today, I want to talk about something I just realized I hadn't talked about in 5 years, and that is the character Bible for your mystery. And I reference it a lot, and I thought, I think maybe I need to bring this up to date. So before we get started, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon for their continued support of this video series and my mystery writing. And if you'd like to join us with special videos and updates on my writing, there's a link in the description below. Okay, so let's just walk through what is a character Bible and how it works for your mystery, because it's really important, and working on your character Bible is going to help you write your mystery. Because believe it or not, as you work on your characters, you're going to come up with ideas for clues. You're going to come up with ideas for red herrings. You're going to come up with ideas to create conflict for your detective. You've got a lot of conflict to work through in the middle of your story, and working on those characters in your story is going to help you come up with ideas for that. And it doesn't happen while you're sitting meditating. It actually happens as you're working on your character Bible and you're thinking about all the things you want to know about each character as you go through. So, what is a character Bible? It's a comprehensive document you create for your characters. So, first of all, I wanted to show you my original character Bible from 2008. It's a big hunky thing, and you don't have to do that anymore, but it's one way of doing it, and it's to have a binder with a section for each character in your novel. There are programs like Plotter where you can work on each character and develop those characters individually. You can put images in of how you think they look, which helps you visualize those characters. There's actually a link in the description below to Plotter, so you can check it out, because it's going to save you the big hefty weighty cram full binder way of filing things. Anyway, I did start out with a binder, and it just got bigger and bigger. So our new online tools are really helpful when it comes to creating that Bible, which is every single character in your mystery. Working on your character Bible really helps you create multi-dimensional, complex, three-dimensional, as it were, characters that your reader relates to because they feel real. So let's talk about what goes into your character Bible. It's really essential to understand the key elements that make up this really indispensable tool. It's like, just as an artist uses a variety of colors to create a painting, a mystery writer employs different aspects of a character's life to create an engaging narrative, and that's why working on the background of your characters really enriches your story. So let's get into it. First, there's basic character information, and this is your character bedrock, if you will, and it's the foundation on which you build everything else. It includes their name, their age, their appearance, their occupation, and any other details that you feel are pertinent to that character. And it helps you formulate the character in your mind, and it gives your readers a concrete sense of who your character is. Um, it's like the first brush strokes in a painting, all right? And then there's all the things that happen to you, to those characters before they appear in the story. Characters arrive with their baggage. It's their backstory. And you may not need to put a lot of backstory into your novel, but on the other hand, you as the author need to know that backstory so you can bring up backstory details when they influence your character's actions, when you feel it's appropriate. You don't have to go into long backstory sections of your novel. I've talked about this before, but knowing that backstory helps you know the character as a human being and helps you bring up the right moments that trigger some kind of response. The other thing you want to know that's really important to work out in your character Bible is your character's relationships to other characters in your story. And depending on who that character is, say for instance, your detective, it could be their mentor or their sidekick. It could be their love interest. And then you're really going to want to have a sense of how your detective relates to those suspects. We're going to talk about them in a minute. But all those other characters they meet along the way as they're trying to solve the puzzle of the crime. So character relationships are really important. Along with that big binder that I showed you a couple of minutes ago, I also had a humongous mind map. I think I overdid it when I started, but I had this huge, humongous mind map with all these arrows for all the character relationships, and it's much easier to just write down the other characters and who they are. And for instance, in Plotter, you can tag other characters in your character background. It makes it a lot easier than a giant, humongous, made my computer tired just to bring it up, mind map with all the arrows going back and forth. Okay. Um, and then something I feel is really important, and it is often overlooked when you get a guide to developing your character background, and that is the character's story context. What role do they serve in your story? It's just so important, and it's really important for beginning writers where you are populating your story, and you may find that the context or the story role for 2 or 3 characters may actually be the exact same thing. And so rather than confuse your reader with 3 different characters, you can usually combine that into one character who stands for whatever that story role is in your story. And it keeps your story lean and it keeps your readers reading. So story context is very important. For instance, your detective is there to solve the puzzle. They're the protagonist. And the suspects are there to discover information about the victim and also to discover um, information about the crime. It's just some ideas of what do I mean by the story context. But anyway, you want to have a context for all of your characters so that you don't end up with too many characters. All right. So, let's talk a little bit more about your protagonist, your detective, because they're your reader's guide to the whole story. Um, they're the star of your novel, as it were. And the character, the reader, follows through the story. They root for your character when they encounter difficulties, and they connect with that character. Your detective is their main connection to the story. That's why the character is so important. It Your character brings the mystery puzzle plot alive and makes it personal and connects your reader with the story. All right. So the first step in understanding who your protagonist is their core. Um, and we talked a little bit about that in a minute ago, their occupation and their appearance. But it really, what connects the reader, you need to know those things so you can show that they're real, as it were, in the story world. But what really connects your reader to your detective is their personality traits, their habits, their quirks, their dislikes, their fears, and their values. And those are the things that readers understand, and those are the things that create that emotional connection that makes them care and want to follow that character through this puzzle solving discovery story that you've created. Okay. Um, you want to, if you think, if you don't do the backstory for any other character, the backstory for your protagonist is so important because, as I mentioned earlier, you can bring up backstory details that impact their responses and their actions as they confront things in your story. Um, and of course, for your protagonist, they need some skills. They need to be actually able to solve a mystery. So you want to delineate for yourself what those skills are, how those skills are important. And I also just suggest how those skills can get them into trouble, because you have this whole middle section of the story where you need to create conflict. So a skill that may help them actually solve the mystery puzzle can also create a conflict, say, with another character in the middle of your story. So I suggest that you also don't just write down their skills, but write down how they help your protagonist and how they can possibly hinder your protagonist, the pros and cons of each of those skills. All right. Um, so building your protagonist is like getting to know a new friend, especially if this is a brand new book for you and you've never written about this character before. You really want to get to know them. You want to sit down and have coffee with them, as it were, and really get to know their details, who they are, how they interact with the world. And it's going to help you so much when you actually get to writing your story. All right, and then those supporting characters, I want to talk about those because for each mystery that you write, the supporting characters are going to play a major part in the story. There may be ongoing supporting characters, say like your detective's partner or sidekick or their mentor or their opponent, somebody who just gives them trouble, doesn't like your protagonist for whatever reason. Um, and those are ongoing. And then the suspects are different for each novel. And what you want to know about the suspects is it's how they related. I talked about how relating to other characters, how they related to the victim, and also any personality quirks or anything that they want to hide, personal things that they may want to hide and that they're going to lie about. They may not have anything to do with the actual crime of the story, but it's going to lead your detective on some merry chases from time to time. Um, and of course, their relationship with the protagonist and how they respond to your protagonist asking them questions. is really important. Some people may be compliant, some people may be resistant, um, some people may be open about one area of their life, but very reticent about another area of their life. So bring all those things in and make those characters come alive so that when you actually start writing this story, you know them. You know how to make them work in a scene. Um, and of course, once again, you want to know their context. How do they work in the story plot? Why are they there in your story? There needs to be a reason. What role do they have in the story? And just make a little note to yourself. This is their role in the story. Um, okay, and then the antagonist. An antagonist is something that's very important for mystery writers, and it's tough. For most genres, the antagonist is right there. We know who they are from the beginning, and it's a battle of wits and physical battles, whatever. But in the mystery, for most of the story, your reader has no idea who the real villain is. And so you want to be dropping hints and clues throughout the story about this antagonist and about their actions, and at the same time keeping them hidden as the real villain until the end of the story. So the more that you know about your villain and what motivates them, how they feel about your protagonist, and how they feel about the other suspects in this story, is once again going to help you write the story. But be sure to create a very engaging backstory for your villain. And then also another character that often gets overlooked is the victim. The victim is the fulcrum for the whole story. So even if you're writing a series and you have the same protagonist and the same sidekick and the same love interest, the mystery, the victim is going to be different in each of those stories. And the victim is the key to the mystery. They are the person who is usually murdered, and the first thing your detective has to do is find out about that victim to try to piece together why somebody would want to kill them and eventually who did it. So the more you know about the victim, the easier it is for you to plant clues, create red herrings about a relationship that they had with one of the suspects or several of the suspects. It doesn't matter, but you need to know the complete backstory of your victim in order to make them worthy of your protagonist solving their crime, solving their murder. So you want to know all the stuff that you know about other main characters, their occupation, their personality traits. All of those things are really important because they relate to their relationship to the other characters in the story. Um, okay, I think we've covered everything. And then one more thing I wanted to point out about your character Bible is any character arcs that you want to develop in your story. What it, how does that character, what is that character's position at the beginning of the story, and what is their position at the end? It is not a requirement in a mystery novel for your protagonist to have a huge character arc, but sometimes in one-off novels, uh, people do that with their protagonist. I just think of Miss Marple. She's the same in every story. So your protagonist doesn't necessarily need a character arc where the the incidents in the story teach them something about themselves. That can happen, but that they have a giant change in their perspective from the beginning to the end. But doing all the work, if you want to create a character arc, doing all that background work is going to help you with your character arc and making it believable and making it emotional for your readers. Okay, that's a lot, and a character Bible is a lot. But the more you develop your characters, the better able you'll be able to bring in their quirks, their personality traits, their likes and their dislikes at the appropriate moment when you're writing a scene. Okay, I hope that really helps. And once again, I wanted to point out that instead of having the great big huge hefty mega binder, you can use something like Plotter to do your complete character Bible and go through your characters one by one. Plotter is an online app and you can put pictures in, you can write as much description as you want, you can tag relationships. It's a very helpful tool. There's a link in the description below to Plotter if you'd like to investigate it. All right, thank you so much. And as always, if you have any questions, please send them to me, write them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer questions. Character Bible is so important and it's a big project. So good luck with your character Bible. It's actually very fun as you develop all the traits and personality quirks of each of your characters. So thank you so much for being here. If you like this video, don't forget to like it and also subscribe and click that little notification bell. And I will see you next week with more information about writing mysteries.